What's going on, y'all? We got Let's Be Real episode 10, man. Look, I know we've been out for a couple weeks. Had some stuff going on. Was sick for a week, has people in town. But look, man, we back, man. Episode 10, day before Thanksgiving. And so we got a lot to get into. We got some big games in the NFL coming up. We're gonna talk a little bit of basketball. We're gonna give our the best bets this week coming off of a 5-0 week. But look, no matter how quick we got to be, no matter how much we got to get in, you know what we starting with every time, and that's the wine, man. So today, man, what we got is a Chateau Lanessan Haut-Medoc. It is a Bordeaux, man. Really, really good. Um, Very bold, very dry. Um, Flavors get blackberry, dark fruits, some oak in there. I get probably 7 out of 10. I think is a good solid point. But man, good solid wine, man. And so, not what I'm gonna be drinking on Thanksgiving, but um, really good wine to have. I'm just gonna finish this one up. But look, if you are looking for good wines, what I'm gonna be drinking on Thanksgiving, man, Housley wines, man. Shout out to them. Their Zinfandel, their Cabernet, incredible wines. So if y'all looking for a really good wine for the holidays, I definitely recommend checking out Housley wines. Um, and I think I've had them on the podcast in the past as far as like drinking it. So you can always find it. Housley wines, go check them out as well. And look, man, we're going to get into it. Like I said, I know we missed a couple of weeks, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it like we normally do. We're going to get into last week's games. We're going to get into this week's games. And like I said, we got some NBA that we're going to touch on afterwards. And then we're going to finish it up with our betting segment. And so, look, first game we're going to start off with from last week is we're going to start off with that Thursday night game, man, Texans and the Bills. And so with that game, man, it's obviously Texans beat the Bills 23-19. Josh Allen again does not play well, looking like he's kind of back to his old ways of you might get a great game, you might get a terrible game. But here's what I'll say. One, as far as, I know a big topic has been, are the Bills contenders after that game? And so here's what I'll say around that. I think that the Bills, I would normally, if this was any other year, I'd say no, just because of their propensity to come out and just lay a dud. Um, However, I think this year in particular is very unique in that there is really this year has only been one team that's looked dominant, and they're in the NFC and that's the Rams. Whereas the AFC, man, I mean, when you look at it right now, the teams that we would normally consider in the past few years, as far as like, oh, the Bills aren't contenders because of these teams, right? The Chiefs, obviously, well, look, they're 6-5. Um, right now on the outside of the playoffs. The Ravens are also 6-5. Haven't played well all year. Coming off a good stretch of wins against some inferior competition, so we really don't know what that defense is going to look like. And the offense hasn't looked great at all over these last few weeks since Lamar's come back. And so with those two teams kind of in flux, when you look at the playoffs right now, you're talking about the Colts, who, again, Daniel Jones is their quarterback, and we're going to talk about that game this week, but hard to trust him going into a playoff game. Patriots look really good, but also, I mean, they've beaten the Bills. I think they've beaten one other good team this year, but for the most part, not a great, not a lot of great wins. And again, rookie quarterback. So, we don't know what that's going to look like going into your first playoff series. Obviously, like I said, we got the Ravens in first place. Right now, I think Jaguars in first place. Again, can't really trust Trevor Lawrence yet. And so there's just there's a lot of just influx when we talk about those AFC teams that are currently in the playoffs holding those spots where, a Chargers, another team, Broncos, Bo Nix, do you really trust him? Chargers, no Joe Alt. Chargers have looked like a totally different team. So I would say this year, just because one, you have Josh Allen and he does have the ability to go Superman, I think you have to still consider them a contender. And look, I mean, Josh, for the losses he has in the playoffs, he puts up good numbers and he plays well in the playoffs. And so it's not like, it's a Lamar thing where you're looking at, okay, well, if he makes the playoffs, we're probably not going to get the best version. Like Josh has shown that he can, I mean, we look back at some of his biggest playoff games, he toe to toe with Mahomes down to a 13-second game. And so, again, I think in a normal year, I would say no, not a chance. But this year, with just the field that's in the playoffs currently and how no one's really shown that they're going to be this dominant team in the AFC, I still got to put them in contention status. However, again, I think with the Bills, in order for them to be truly a great team that can contend, it can't be this, Joe Brady run heavy offense. And look, I know James Cook he's been a monster, but the Bills are at their scariest when Josh Allen is being Superman. Now, what I think is in the regular season, the Joe Brady offense relying on the run, look, it's going to get you wins. It is going to get you wins. And I don't want Josh Allen to have to go out and be Superman for 18 weeks, right? But when it comes playoff time, I think your best chance of winning in the playoffs is Josh Allen going Superman. And it makes it a little harder when, the guy that they would look like they were going to be relying on to be that big threat for them on the outside, Keon Coleman. Look, he's now been benched 2 straight games. It's one thing if you get like the CD and George Pickens, bench them for the first series, whatever, first play, whatever. But to be benched for 2 straight games and nothing's wrong, that tells me one of two things. Either one, you're not good enough, or two, there's something else is going on with you inside of that locker room that makes them think that even though you have the talent, you don't contribute to winning. And so again, this is a guy, and look, I'm guilty of it. I thought he was going to have a big year this year. You talk to some of the guys in that locker room, he was looking like he was going to be ready to step up into a major role. And now it's not looking like that. And again, I don't know how you can go from benching a guy for 2 straight games and then expecting him to be a great weapon for you come playoff time. And again, it makes Josh Allen's job that much harder. But again, now Josh Allen going Superman, look, you might get a Texans game, you might get a Dolphins game, but again, you might get a Kansas City 13-second game. So I think that's just what you kind of have to ride with, especially being that offensively, I think they're so limited. And that's what, like I said, I think that's their only path as far as the true contention. Next up, man, we got the Rams and the Bucks. And so, look, Rams obviously take care of business, 34-7. And we'll start with the Bucks side of it, man. Obviously, Bucks who already dealing with a ton of injuries. Baker Mayfield goes down, and so now I think they have Teddy Bridgewater as a backup, solid backup. Somebody, he's got experience coming in, playing in games, and being a solid backup. But look, this was going to be the tough part of the Bucs schedule, and this last part is where they were supposed to kind of start making that push. And I mean, now look, Baker's not out for the year. Hopefully, it's only a week or two thing. But these are the wins they need. Like I said, I thought this team was probably going to end up being the 1 seed just because of their schedule and because of that, just the talent they had on the offense. Obviously, injuries have taken out that offense, and look, they just haven't taken care of business when they needed to. But yeah. So I think it again still in good shape, still should win the division. But I mean, you drop a couple of these games, or one or two of these games here, and now it really starts to become panic time. And I think with losing Baker, who is basically willed this team to some of these wins, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we see them drop these games. And on the other side, man, look, Stafford and the Rams are looking like far and away the best team in the NFL this year. Stafford is on just, I think it says, they said 27 touchdowns since his last interception. I think he's like 30 touchdowns, 2 picks this year, and favorite for the MVP. So I just want to take a second because I think, one, just the fact that he's performing at this level when coming into the season, the biggest thing on that Rams was, oh, Stafford, we don't know if he's coming back. Then when he gets back, it's, oh, his back is all messed up all through training camp and the preseason. Oh, no, like this might be bad. For him to be doing all this at his age, 38, whatever he is, 39, leading candidate for MVP, would take a really big collapse for him to really lose that MVP. And I think when you're looking at his career, obviously he's going to have numbers that are going to be up there, but for him to then add to it Super Bowl, Super Bowl MVP, and a regular season MVP, I think this pushes him into a no doubt Hall of Famer. So look, again, big implications if Stafford can win this MVP. And I mean, that's not even counting, if they go on to win the Super Bowl, which, like I said, right now they look like the team to beat in the NFL. And so, I mean, with them playing like this, that offense is clicking, that defense has been incredible. Um, Obviously, they've been number one on my top five for the last few weeks. And again, they just continue to roll. I think they're going to roll again this week. Um, and again, I think Stafford he's going to just keep adding to this MVP looking season. And then we're going to stick with another quarterback. So from a veteran who looking to mount an MVP case to a rookie who just won the starting job. And we're going to be talking about Shador and the Browns. So like Shador obviously gets the start over Dylan Gabriel, who had the concussion last week. So gets to start over the Raiders, and look, 24-10, gets the win. Um, does enough. Look, his stat line was solid. I think he was 11 for 20. Had a little over 200 yards, had a touchdown, had another. One of those plays got down to the 3-yard line. They take him out. So, but anyways, played well enough to win the starting job, and I think for one, it's because, look, Dylan Gabriel, not only was he one of the worst quarterbacks in the league and during his starting tenure, but a lot of it was just that offense is very one dimensional in short stuff and checkdowns. And here's what I'll say about Shador is, um, he had every incentive to go out and play a safe game. Now he did throw the interception, bad interception, but a rookie interception. But he had every incentive to go out, play a safe game, easy stuff, check downs, and he took shots and he connected on some of those shots. And I mean, you could even see just kind of the there. If y'all watch the game, there's a clip of Myles Garrett like in shock after a big time play that he made on a big time throw, and it's just adding that element. It's something that they haven't had, and so now look again. I'm not saying his stat line was stellar. 11 for 20, 200 yards, a touchdown, an interception is nothing stellar, but he does give them an added dimension. And I know everybody's going to talk about, his interview after the game. I don't care as much about that. I think that it, I think I've said this before. I think if you're a professional athlete, that's how you feel, because the only way you get to be a professional athlete is feeling like you are the best option and you're better than anybody that's been ahead of you ever in your life. And so, I don't care about that as much. I know, you know, media probably doesn't love it. Optically, it might not be the best look, but again, I think true to the core, I think all athletes, especially professional athletes, they have that mindset. And so, um, now what I will say is he won the starting job for now. I don't think it's a solidified thing. I think if he goes out there this week and puts up, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, 150 yards on 40% completion percentage, you might see Dylan Gabriel right back in there. But I think as long as he's steady, he makes some good plays. I even think making those rookie mistakes like he did on that interception is fine, as long as he's offsetting it with some plays that, make you go, "Oh, okay. That's good." And so, um again, I think to me, going out and taking those shots when, like I said, he had all the incentive to play a safe game. I like that. I like that from a guy who, again, you're trying to win a starting job. You're going to have to do some of that. And so, um, again, I think, and I mean, unless he comes out and really starts picking it up and gets it kind of rolling, what we're probably looking at is maybe if he keeps up kind of how let's just say, project out exactly what he did this last week over the season. My guess is they either draft another quarterback this year or bring in a veteran, and it's a competition again. But again, I think he's put himself into a position now where the ball is in his court. And it's unfortunate that, every start you're basically in a tryout, but that's where he's at. And look, I think I liked him coming out of college. I think he can be a good pro, and he gives the Browns, and he's a much higher upside quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. And so I'm rooting for him, but again, still a lot of work to do. And so next, man, look, we're going to talk about the Cowboys and my Eagles. So Cowboys beat the Eagles 24-21, last second field goal. And look, there's just a lot wrong here. Look, we're going to start with, though, because we haven't been able to talk about it the last few weeks, A.J. Brown every week giving us a clip-worthy quote, whether it's talking about, Saquon. And look, I know the Saquon thing sounded bad. I don't think he was taking a shot at Saquon. I think it was more so just the fact of like, hey, the offense isn't geared towards me. And people are saying I'm, not the player I was. Saquon's also not having a great year. No one's saying that about him. And it's just, I think it more so he's talking about the offense as a whole. Everyone's numbers are down. So it's not just his. But again, it's just, he has that quote. He has the quote on the Twitch stream. And look, it's just, and then again, you also now have more players. You're starting to get quotes from anonymous players in the locker room saying, yeah, the offense, they don't like the fact that Jalen doesn't take chances. Jalen's talking about, I just want to win. And look, I get it. But here's what I'll say. I know A.J. Brown has been the villain in a lot of this. It doesn't look like he's the only one who feels this way. Now, he's the only one who's putting his face to it. And so I have no problem with that. And he's not wrong. The offense has been bad all year. You can go through the numbers. I just saw the numbers today. So currently this year, I think they are the highest percentage 3-and-out team. A third of our drives end in a 3-and-out. We're the second highest punt team. So percentage of drives that end in a punt, just behind the Titans. And to take it a step further on the 3-and-out, the one I saw today is They are currently the third worst team in the last 10 years on three and out percentage. So, look, you might not like how AJ's saying it. You might not like how he's, going about it, but he's not wrong. There is a clear problem. And again, I'm going to point to the fact Nick Sirianni, what do you do? What do you do? You now clearly, to me now it seems you have a locker room divided. Your offensive coordinator clearly cannot call a competent game of offense. You don't call the offense. What do you do other than get a gaudy win record for having the most talented team in the league? Because I bang this drum a lot. If you are not the play caller, you're typically a culture setter. The Eagles culture right now may be the worst in the league. They were in 8-2 coming into the week, with clips coming out and quotes coming out every week. It's just not something you typically see from a team with a good culture. And again, going back to it, you don't call plays. You're the culture setter. It's a bad culture. And so I just think, again, might not like the way AJ's saying it, but it seems like he's not the only one who's feeling this way about the offense and about Jalen. And again, when you have the second most scoreless halves in the season, followed by only the Titans, there's an issue. And look, going to the game itself, Eagles up 21-0, obviously lose 24-21, another scoreless half in the second half. And my thing with it is I'd almost be okay if you went scoreless and you won 21-14, 21-17, because, or let's say 21-14, 21-10, because, it was just, hey, we got a big lead. We're just going to bleed out this clock. But that wasn't the case. Saquon, all day, 10 rushes. In the second half, 6. So you were throwing the ball, and it wasn't working. And you kept throwing the ball, and it kept not working. Which means clock was stopped. Which means Dallas gets more opportunities. Again, sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I know Saquon's not having a great year. He's going to have 15 carries in the second half. Or, hey, he's going to have 10 carries. Tank Bigsby's going to have 8 carries. But again, to me, it's just in an offense that has been described as having no kind of that no one knows what it is. And nothing's been able to really get going. And look, I know in the first half it was going great. And that's kind of been the Eagles all year is, they string together four drives where they look like the greatest team in the league. But then the rest of the game, they're terrible. And that's what it was. And, sometimes it's as simple as, hey, we just need to hand the ball off. Let's get out of here with the win. Because look, and I know I'm big on, it's not just about getting ugly wins, but I'll take an ugly win over a collapse any day, because you just almost like arrogantly are showing that you can throw the ball. And look, on the other side of it, man, Dak and the Cowboys, Dak having a great, great year. Cowboys, obviously making a playoff push. Like the defense has obviously improved since making those moves. I still don't think it's great. I think they've gotten kind of, you know, they've gotten a little inflated from the facts of who they've played since those trades, but it is better. There's no denying that. I think this is going to be a real good test for them coming up this week. But as far as them making a playoff push, to me, it just seems unlikely. Because, I mean, like you got the Chiefs and then the Lions. You're going to have to beat one of those, probably both, to really give yourself a good chance to make the playoffs. And you're going to have to, or you're going to have to run the table. And it's just a team that hasn't shown the ability to really go on a win streak. And it's going to look, it's going to be awkward because I'm talking about another team like that who I think is going to go on a win streak. But as the Cowboys, a team that has not shown the ability to go on a win streak this year or really in the past few years, I just find that hard to believe that you're going to beat Chiefs, Lions, one of those, and go on just a win streak to end the year. And so to me, I don't think so. I see them as more of kind of a playoff kind of ruiner as far as, for instance, like this week, if they were to beat the Chiefs, you're effectively ending the Chiefs season, right? Chiefs would then have to win out. And so I could see them spoiling other teams' playoff chances because when you have an offense that good with a quarterback playing that well and those receivers and that tight end and Javonte Williams running the ball like he is, you can beat anybody any week. But again, it's just hard for me to see them not having a down game or a down 2 games to end the year. Next, man, we're going to talk about Brock Purdy and the Niners. And so, look, Brock Purdy and the Niners, they get the win 20-9 over Carolina. But not as nice of a win as the score would indicate. Here's what I will say. That 49ers defense and Robert Saleh deserves an award for what he's doing with this defense with the injuries that they've sustained. Because this should not have been a win for the Niners. If Carolina could put together any semblance of a good offense this last week, they should have blown the Niners out. Brock Purdy with 3 interceptions did not look good at all. And effectively, after the third one in the second half, was basically, it went to a check down offense from Kyle Shanahan. And credit to him, what do you do in any sport when you're having, a down stretch? Get the ball in your best player's hands. And they got the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands a lot. And so I think the real big thing that's coming out of this is obviously, Brock's been dealing with that turf toe. He said he's good. He's fine. Everything. He's healthy. If I'm the Niners or a Niners fan, I'm hoping that that's not true. Because this year, he has not played well. And if there's one thing that you can say, okay, well, he hasn't played well, but it's the fact that he's been hurt. So if he's coming out saying, no, not hurt at all, fully healthy, that's an issue. Because that's the guy that you just paid $50 million a year to. And this just goes back to when we were coming into this season, prior to them paying him, I said, you should play it out. Because you've now seen he's gotten hurt again. So safe to say he's injury prone. And, more tape you get on him. While he started off with his Niners extremely hot, the last, I think it's 12 games, he's been pretty pedestrian. And then it also hurts the fact that Mac Jones comes in and looks like he can run the offense just as well. And he's making $4 million. And so again, you gave Purdy $50 million, you gave him a no trade clause. To me, this looks like, again, it's almost the worst case scenario for the Niners as far as every reason that you could have possibly looked at and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't pay him this offseason has come to fruition. And lastly, man, look, we're going to go ahead to the last game here, Chiefs and Colts. So obviously the Chiefs get the win, man, 23-20. And look, obviously Mahomes, not a great game. No touchdowns, had I think 350 yards, had the interception, which great play by that D lineman. But at the end of the day, they, down, needing a great fourth quarter, a superhuman fourth quarter, and that's what they get from Patrick. And so, look, again, it's, back against the wall, Chiefs, and like I said with the Dallas, this is the team I'm going to tell you I think can go on a run, because with that quarterback, with that coach, with the weapons that they have, Rashee Rice finally having another great game, Xavier Worthy making some big plays, Kareem Hunt, man, had a monster day, and then a defense where, Spags drew it up, and they played extremely well. Made Jonathan Taylor look like an average running back. And I know what everyone's going to say, well, you load the box and make Danny Jones beat you, which is what they did. But Chiefs aren't the only team that have done that. And Jonathan Taylor's gotten off on a lot of teams that have done that. And so, look, I think, to me, they are still one of the most complete teams in the league. But they're backs against the wall. Essentially, I think they've probably got one game to play with, as far as they can probably lose one game in the last stretch here. But again, if there was ever going to be a right around 500 team that I would bet on to do it, it's going to be the Chiefs. It's going to be that team. And the other side of it, man, look, I've been hesitant to give the Colts their flowers, mainly because Daniel Jones. And I kept saying, hey, we're probably going to see a regression. And look, what do you know? The Chiefs said, Jonathan Taylor is not going to beat us. Daniel Jones, you're going to have to make plays. And look, when there was no pressure in the first half, he was throwing dots. But the second that pressure ramped up a little bit, it was a lot of missed throws, and they weren't close. And so I think, again, we are seeing the regression of Daniel Jones. And to me, it was a perfect example of why, when the Colts were 8-2 or whatever, I was saying, nope, don't believe in them. And it's why I don't care what their record is. I don't care what their rank on offense is, as far as, I think they're the number one offense in the league. Don't care. Don't believe in it. Got to see it. And it looked to me as though when the pressure ramped up, Daniel Jones became exactly what we thought he was. All right, man. We're going to go ahead. We're going to move into our games this week. And so we're going to start off with the Packers and Lions. And biggest thing here is just, I think this game is really going to determine who's going to take control of this division. Because I know, and look, I know right now the Bears are in first place in that division. But I do not expect that to stay up, because they do play each other a lot here to end the season. And the Bears, similar to the Patriots, not very many good wins. I actually don't know if they might have one good win this year. But so I think with this Packers and Lions game, this is really a game of who's going to take control of the division. And it's two teams who had these massive, massive expectations coming in and have underperformed. Like, let's be honest, the Lions are not the same Lions team we've seen. Last week, not a great showing with the win against the Giants, having to, squeak that one out. Doesn't help when Jameis Winston turns into an all-pro tight end against one of your linebackers. But I just think, that you look at the Packer side of it, Jordan Love obviously is, able to lose you a game or no show a game, any game, doesn't matter when, or come out and look like the best quarterback in the league. And so, two very flawed teams, but I think I would say they're the two best teams in the division, even though the Bears currently are in the lead. And so I think this is going to be a big game as far as the standings go and who ends up winning that division. I would venture to guess whoever wins this game probably wins the division. Next game, man, we have the Bengals and the Ravens. And look, we have Joe Burrow back trying to help the Bengals make a push. I think Bengals playoff chances probably out the window. Look, their defense still terrible. But what I'll say is this. This is really going to be a telling game for the Ravens, because the Ravens, who came out of the gate with this offense that looked incredible and a defense that was letting them down over the last few weeks, has had a defense that looks incredible with an offense that's letting them down. And now, look, Lamar's been banged up. He's been banged up all year. You don't get healthier playing, and he's going to be playing. And so they're going to have to find a way to get this offense going again. And if you can't do it against the Bengals, you may be in real trouble. And so, to me, this is a game. This has to be a get right game for Lamar and this Ravens offense, because if you come out and put up a dud, and God forbid Joe Burrow tears up your defense, you're looking at a real kind of take a look in the mirror. We tossed out all of our stuff from our locker room, beat up a bunch of bad teams, and we're feeling good. In reality, we are not where we think we are. And so, again, I think this, from a Ravens standpoint, this has to be a game where you come out and you show that, hey, no, our defense is for real. Now, Bengals are going to be missing T. Higgins, but Jamar Chase has every reason in the world to want to come out and have a monster game. Joe Burrow, going to be his first game back. We'll see what he looks like, maybe a little rusty. But that Ravens defense, this should be a good litmus test for you as far as, are you what you've been these last few weeks? And again, Bengals defense is terrible. And so if you're the Ravens, this needs to be a get-right game on offense. And look, you're still in a dogfight for the division with the Steelers. I think they'll win it. But the Steelers, look, they're probably going to end up about 9-8, 10-7 again. And I think, again, I think they play each other one more time. And so you're still in a very tight race for that division. Next up, man, we have the Eagles and the Bears. And so, look, from the Bears movie, like I said, no real great wins this year. And as bad and inconsistent as I think the Eagles have been, this would be a good win if you can get it. And so I think for the Bears to, I granted, look, you ask anybody in that locker room if they think they're contenders or they think they can be a great playoff team, I'm sure they'll all say yes. But for those of us on the outside of that locker room, we need to see them beat a good team. And look, Eagles, like I said, inconsistent, yes. At some points the worst offense in the league, yes. But the defense has been solid, and they are still the defending champions. And so if you're the Bears, you can get this win. One, it gives you're going to get some separation from at least one of those other teams in the NFC North, which is great. And two, it shows that you are for real. And from the other side of it, man, the Eagles, look, if you lose to the Bears, who haven't been able to beat a good team, 2 straight losses, my guess is you probably get a lot more anonymous quotes coming out of there. And again, I would think that it would start to spell panic time, because it would, again, the parallels between 2 years ago when they had that epic collapse. If you lose this game, it just, again, it becomes more and more similar to that season. And lastly, man, the Chiefs and the Cowboys, man. So we got Mahomes versus Dak. I know a big talking point on a lot of shows this week is who would you rather have? Obviously, Dak is having a phenomenal year, probably going to end up on some MVP ballots, similarly to Joe Burrow last year. And then other side of it, look, Mahomes he had a stretch where he was looking like, oh, he might make a run at MVP, but for most of the year, I mean, if you look at his numbers, pretty kind of middle of the road. I mean, I think he's up there in yards per game, and up there in touchdowns. But again, from a Mahomes standpoint, not a great season. Obviously, Dak having a better one. Anybody who says they would take Dak over Mahomes is lying to themselves, because at the end of the day, even if you're a Cowboy fan, if you got the first pick of the NFL draft of a player draft right now, so we're redrafting all the quarterbacks, everybody's first pick would be Patrick Mahomes. And if it's not, I seriously question your football knowledge. And so, obviously, I would take Mahomes. I don't think this is even a question. Yes. Is Dak having a better year? Yes. Did guys have better years than Brady in his prime? Yes. Would you take him over him? Absolutely not. And then last, man, look, we alluded to it before, but this Cowboys defense, man, definitely improved. Again, I think it's a little inflated right now, but again, this is going to be a good test for them because, like I said, the Chiefs right now, it's backs against the wall. They have to win the games that they should win. They have to. And so they have every reason to come out, play a great game. The offense looked like they had something going there towards the end of the Colts game. And so, look, is your defense still the defense that guys go to get right? Or is it really improved? Can you really put up some resistance? And can you really, make life difficult on the Chiefs, give your offense a chance to go out and get a win? And to me, I'm picking the Chiefs in this game. I just think when you look at Dak over these last few years, when there's no expectations on him, he plays great. As soon as there's expectations, he's fallen. Same thing. You look at playoff games, hasn't had great showing since his rookie year. I think this is a game where they are now playoff expectations on them somewhat, and it's a big time game. This is probably going to be the most watched NFL game, regular season game of all time. And so to me, this just seems like it's going to be a bad Cowboys game on a lot of different fronts. And so, we'll see. Again, like I said, I mean, both teams are walking in here with, essentially their seasons on the line. And so, pretty much a de facto playoff game. But look, that's going to wrap us up for the NFL week 13. And so, like I said, we're going to move into some basketball here, move into some NBA, and we are going to start here with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And specifically, can any team, provide any kind of resistance to them going back to back? And so here's what I'll say. Because look, 18-1 right now, obviously clicking on all cylinders, haven't had their second best player, and still, I think they broke the record for margin of victory last season, and it's bigger this year. And so SGA is obviously still on a tear. And I know in previous years, we've done this for a few years now, where we see a team come in and they win a championship. Perfect example of this is, let's look at the Nuggets, right? Nuggets come in, they win that championship, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're just so much better than everybody. Joker, best player in the league, which he still is, but Joker, best player in the league. That team just fits so well together. Who can beat them? And then the next year they're out in the second round. And so to me, it's just we've been doing this a lot with these NBA champions for the last few years, where it's like, yeah, no, they're look at them. No one can beat this team. And while typically I'm the one that's like, I don't know, we'll see. This team is looking incredibly good right now. It's it's deeper than it was last year. Chet's playing better. Like I said, still with that, haven't had Jalen Williams this year, and SGA is still going. But I'm just gonna be the devil's advocate here. They did go to a game 7 with Indiana last year in the finals. And prior to Tyrese Halliburton tearing his Achilles, it looked like Indiana was going to win that game 7. And look, again, they had this margin of victory last year, everything. I think it's and look, they are better this year than they were last year. But I also don't think Indiana was this incredible team last year. So do I think that OKC is gettable by a team like, let's say, the Nuggets, who have the best player in the world? Yes. By, this is going to be controversial, by the Lakers, who have a guy playing at an MVP level, and, have a guy who, in LeBron, 41, but still looks like he has a lot of basketball left. And so, that would be what I say. Now, what I do think is going to be interesting is they're 18-1. So that 72-9 or 73-9 win record, I think, very much comes into jeopardy, especially because of how deep they are. Because they can rest guys or have guys out of the lineup and still be a great, great team. And so I think the thing I'm most interested to see kind of play out with OKC this year is obviously, defending their title, but it looks like they might break that record. And it wouldn't be shocking because of just how deep they are and how good they are. And the thing that's even crazier about all of this is they're going to have, I think it's in next year, either next year or 2 years, but 2 straight years, they have Dallas's first round pick. They are going to be able to continue to retool with great, great young players high in the draft. And so this is going to be, as long, I mean, obviously barring a catastrophic injury or some insane drop off by Shea, Chet, this is going to be a team that's going to be competing and at the top of the league for years to come. Next, man, look, we're going to switch gears from, Shea MVP candidate, somewhat face of the league at this point, to a guy who looked like at one point he could have been the face of the league, and that's Ja Morant. And so, look, obviously, if you haven't been following, Ja Morant, again, issues getting up into Klay Thompson's face, and it's just, I don't know if I've ever seen such an insane drop off from a guy who just a few years ago. I'm going to find the exact year. So bear with me for 1 second here. But a player who, a few years ago, we're talking about what was this? 21, 22, 22, 23 when they were in the playoffs. And he was an all-star. So, what is it? 3 seasons ago? Yeah, a player 3 seasons ago where everything going for him. As far as, you know, he was making these highlight plays, he was dunking on people. An exciting player who you looked at and said, okay, this guy, he's an all-star. He's he's got a game that's exciting. He, he's in the playoffs and he's not even 25 yet. To go from that, where we were talking a few years ago, as hey, he might be a potential face of the league, to now saying, gosh, I don't even know if any other team would want him. Or, oh, does he really fit with another team? Is another team willing to take a chance on him? I don't think I've ever seen the fall of a player from where he was to where he's at now, with essentially career lows and everything, that didn't have to do with some kind of injury, like a Derrick Rose, Penny Hardaway. Ja Morant seemed like he was on a trajectory to be a top 5 guy, maybe in the league, top 7 at worst, to now a guy where it's like, I don't even think a team would want him. And it's an unfortunate circumstance like I said, it'd be different if it was a Derrick Rose injury thing, Penny Hardaway injury thing. It's just he's done it to himself, and it seems like every single time he gets in trouble or something happens, obviously you make your apology that your PR team puts together, but every time he's done something, it seems as though it should be an opportunity for him to say, dang, man, look, I really need to reevaluate what I'm doing with my career. And instead, it turns into oh, man, like, how can I, walk the line? Like, how can I get right up to the line that they drew or maybe just kind of tiptoe on it? And it goes back. I mean, so like what I'm talking about is, he gets in trouble for the gun hand gestures, and it's like, okay, well, I won't do a gun, I'll throw a grenade instead. And it's like, just stuff like that. It's a chance where you can learn, say, dang, look what I'm doing in my career. I'm going through suspensions, doing this, and instead it doesn't seem like that's his priority. It seems like his priority is like, almost seems like his priority is like, oh, this is gonna be a great story for my boys when we're done. And it's sad to see, because like I said, I mean, a few years ago it was looking like, and look, I've always been a big Ja guy. I've been saying for years that the winner of that draft was Memphis, because they drafted Ja. Ja was the better player than Zion. And for years it was right. And it looked like it was going to be right. And now it's just, again, it's through only his own doing, all unraveling. And it's probably one of just the worst things to see, because and look, if y'all didn't watch, Klay Thompson was interviewed about it afterward. He's like, look, the NBA needs its stars on the court, and he has just not been able to do what he needs to do as a superstar to be on the court. And so it's just something that, it again, sucks to see. And lastly, we're going to talk about the Lakers. And so, look, Lakers obviously, off to a hot start, and then LeBron come back with from the sciatica, and so clearly they were going to be such a worse team when he came back, because he can't be a third option. He should probably come off the bench. Actually, they're 3-0. They're 3-0. Luka still looks like an MVP candidate. Austin Reeves is still cooking. LeBron has taken the back seat, been the willing third option, and been playing extremely, extremely well. And last night against the Clippers probably had his best game. And so I guess again, who am I? Who am I, right? I probably don't know as much basketball as these other people that are saying all these things. But to me, it just didn't seem like a hot take that LeBron James, who's widely considered to have one of the highest basketball IQs ever, can't figure out how to fit in with a team with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves and all that. Again, maybe that was crazy of me, but just it seemed as though we were probably writing the LeBron obituary a little prematurely when we literally saw him take the backseat last year and do it well. And so, look, because I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen, right? Because we went from LeBron will never be the third option. He might do it for a game, but he won't ever do that because he's stat padding, right? And we're going to get into the whole stat padding thing in a later episode because it's one of the most ridiculous things in the world. But we're going to go from that LeBron can't be the third option. And I promise you what you'll start seeing here, because he is going to take the third. He is going to be the third option. Some nights he'll probably be the second. But for the most part, he'll probably end up being that third, and he'll fit in and kind of do what he's been doing. Hey, hit some open shots. He'll have a chance to, go when Luka's out and kind of run the offense, get some assists, play that pick and roll. He'll be in the pick and roll with Luka. And what you're quickly going to see is it go from he can't take a back seat to, oh, Luka and Austin Reeves are carrying LeBron now. Look, LeBron didn't do this. LeBron only had 22 the game. Luka and Austin had 30 each. And it's just, again, another push of, I know everybody likes to say the clutch media, but when you really look at it, it's a lot of Jordan fans in the media. And so, but again, I'm telling you, I think that's what's going to be. I think that is what you'll start seeing probably here in the next week or two, month, whatever. But what I will say is, with Luka playing the way he's playing, Austin Reeves playing the way he's playing, LeBron being the third option, who, from last night, still has the ability to play some defense, to get guys in position to score himself, which means, again, some nights he'll probably be the second best player. But it does look like he still has the ability to, go out and make a big time impact on the game. And if you're getting that from your third best player or your third option, you're a contender. All right, man. And so I don't know. All right, lastly, man, we are going to end with our bets for the week. And so first we're going to recap last week, man. So last week, come on, y'all. 5-0 week, baby. We called it. We needed it. Puts us at 16-14 on the season. So last week we had Falcons +2 over Saints. We had the Jags -2.5 versus the Cardinals, the Browns +3.5 versus the Raiders, the Bengals +7.5 versus the Patriots, and the Bears -2.5 versus the Steelers. And this week we are going with Chiefs -3.5 versus the Cowboys. This one pretty simple. Like I said before, I think that this game is going to be a little too bright for Dallas. I think both teams need it, but I think the Chiefs are more experienced in games where back against the wall or needed games and big time games. So I'm going with the Chiefs -3.5. Next one, Dolphins -5.5 versus the Saints. Rationale here is I think the Saints are pretty terrible. Same reason I bet the Falcons against them last week. Unfortunate that I can't get the underdog in this one again, but I think the Dolphins Look, they've shown that they are going to still play this year, and they're not just reserved to, 1, 2, 3 Cancun. And so I think with that, um, Dolphins -5.5. I think they win by a decent margin here. Next one, big one. Rams -10.5 versus the Panthers. This one I just think is, I think the Rams defense alone might not let the Panthers score 10 points. And I think the Rams are going to get whatever they want. So I think that one is, again, Rams -10.5 versus Panthers. Next one, Bills -3.5 versus the Steelers. Look, the Bills need a good win. They need a win right now. After last week's performance against the Texans, they've had the full week. I think that Josh Allen comes out and plays well. I think Steelers, I don't truly believe in them. And so to me, I think Bills -3.5. And lastly, Lions -3 versus the Packers. Again, this one was tough. I was going back and forth with it. I almost didn't want to bet this game, period. This one really just came down to the fact of, like, do I think the Lions are going to be what they've been for the last few years or closer to that than Jordan Love's going to be to being a great quarterback in this game? And so I think Lions are probably going. I think the Lions up to this point are probably the better team, and so Lions -3. All right, y'all, and that's all we got for today. Look, as always, I appreciate y'all, man. Look, like, subscribe, hit the notification button, hit the bell, so that way you get notified anytime we drop a new episode. Look, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TikTok. We drop a lot of content on TikTok, so make sure y'all check us out. Give us a follow. Give us a sub. All that. And look, appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all next week.